notwithstanding all of the limitations that you've eloquently described, I'm struggling to see a scenario now in which robust use of sauna, and I want to be really clear and say a dry sauna, 20 minutes at a shot, 4 times a week or more to 80 degrees Celsius. So that's not smoking and joking in the sauna. That's a real sauna experience for anybody who's familiar with those numbers. 80 degrees Celsius it's not that comfortable. And 20 minutes at that temperature, you're in there, and 4 times a week. It really seems that there are benefits that come from doing that. Now let's talk a little bit about why. What do we think are the mechanisms by which such an activity can produce such a benefit? You alluded to one, which is this type of activity seems to mimic exercise. And there's no shortage of literature that gives us reasons why exercise is beneficial. So rather than revisit all of those, let's just sort of put that in the bucket of all things exercise related might be mimicked here, at least cardiovascular exercise. As you said, when your heart rate gets up to 150 beats per minute in a sauna, that tells you something is going on. The cardiac output necessary to do that, presumably from the standpoint of a cooling need and or a metabolic need, that's pretty significant for an adult. What about other things like growth hormone, heat shock proteins? Where do these other mechanisms fit in that, by the way, also overlap with exercise a bit?
Yeah, I think there's overlap pretty much with everything with exercise, including there's increased growth hormone levels. I think we saw increased prolactin, cortisol, and then there are other hormones, likely increase norepinephrine, renin activity, white blood cell count, heat shock proteins. So there might be some type of immune function improvement too there as well. With exercise, I think you could find all of these things there as well. So I'm not sure what would be independent of what benefits you might gain from sauna versus gaining them from exercise per se.
What's your prediction, right? What is your prediction if we could do the Gedanken experiment of you randomize people to 4 hours a week of sauna under these conditions, so aliquoted out such that you, had whatever it works out to, 6 days a week such that it adds up to 4 hours versus the exact same amount of exercise, and you push people in exercise such that their heart rate is matched to sauna. So can you follow the experiment? What's your prediction in terms of outcome? You do this for 20 years.
I don't think you would see a significant difference between an exercise group and a sauna group if you're controlling for heart rate. I'm trying to think if exercise might actually show a bit of a benefit versus if you did it with sauna. But I think that you would see a lot of similarities there. I don't know if you would actually see an effect. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, that's the kind of experiment I'd love to see done. You can't do that experiment in humans. There's no time. But that's an experiment that could probably be done in animals. Curious if anything like it has been done, because you'd really want to see 3 groups, right? So you want a control group that basically does nothing. You want exercises mildly, doesn't get their heart rate up, basically just walks on the mouse wheel, and then exercises vigorously to a heart rate that is basically matched to where the heat exposed animals go. And yeah, I'd be very curious to see, obviously my prediction would be the exercise and sauna animals do significantly better than the control sedentary animal. But is there a difference between those two? That's the question that's interesting. And then, of course, the question is what's mediating the difference mechanistically. So let's bring this back then to our question of opportunity cost. Thank you for listening to today's sneak peek AMA episode of The Drive. If you're interested in hearing the complete version of this AMA, you'll want to become a member. We created the membership program to bring you more in-depth exclusive content without relying on paid ads. Membership benefits are many, and beyond the complete episodes of the AMA each month, they include the following: ridiculously comprehensive podcast show notes that detail every topic, paper, person, and thing we discuss on each episode of The Drive. access to our private podcast feed, the Qualies, which are a super short podcast, typically less than 5 minutes, released every Tuesday through Friday, which highlight the best questions, topics, and tactics discussed on previous episodes of The Drive. This is particularly important for those of you who haven't heard all of the back episodes. It becomes a great way to go back and filter and decide which ones you want to listen to in detail. Really steep discount codes for products I use and believe in, but for which I don't get paid to endorse, and benefits that we continue to add over time. If you want to learn more and access these member-only benefits, head over to peterattiamd.com/subscribe. Lastly, if you're already a member, but you're hearing this, it means you haven't downloaded our member-only podcast feed where you can get the full access to the AMA and you don't have to listen to this. You can download that at peterattiamd.com/members. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all with the ID Peter Attia MD. You can also leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast player you listen on. This podcast is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is formed. The use of this information and the materials linked to this podcast is at the user's own risk. The content on this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice from any medical condition they have, and they should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions. Finally, I take conflicts of interest very seriously. For all of my disclosures and the companies I invest in or advise, please visit peterattiamd.com/about, where I keep an up-to-date and active list of such companies.